What is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Superdraft Breakdown Show here on Rotogrinders. I'm Trent Ferguson. I'm going to bring you some of my favorite picks over on Superdraft. Haven't signed up for it yet. Making bad life choices. Sign up using promo code Grinders. Get a free 100% deposit bonus. That's just straight up Superdraft cash if you deposit 150. If you deposit more than that, you get a 50% drip on top of that. Some more added incentive up to $500. So deposit $1,000. $150 free dollars immediately, plus $500 in drip bonus that goes in at a 4% rate. The 150 is pretty much free cash. Just play through it once and it's yours. The rest of it drips right in. If you can't deposit that much, deposit under 150, get $50 in super draft cash immediately. Again, $50. Play through it once, it's yours. So you deposit 25 or you deposit 100, you still get $50 there. I suggest taking full advantage, but if you don't have $1,000, that's entirely fine. It happens. It's not for everyone, but that is the best way to maximize it. So get signed up. Again, use the promo code Grinders. And if you're worried about not knowing what you're doing on that site, I got you covered. Don't worry. I'm going to be breaking down today's NBA slate. We're going to be breaking it down multiple times a week, as we have been every Monday, Wednesday, Friday right now. Schedule up in the air. Could always change, but that's what it is right now. And we got an interesting little slate here. A lot of news that could potentially change some things around, but it is an interesting slate to say the least. We obviously just had the trade deadline yesterday, made things very confusing. There are a few injuries that we're still waiting on, a few different things that we're still waiting on today's slate that could drastically change it, namely the Jimmy Butler news. But we already know that Terrence Ross is ruled out. Terrence Ross ruling out, guess what? The Magic squad is just a whole mess, and I can almost guarantee that someone from Orlando is going to be the top play pretty much on the entire slate. I don't know who it's going to be. We're going to be breaking down, giving you different possibilities, but I've created a nice little spreadsheet, just imported in the RG projections, multiplied it by the multiplier, because that's all RG is. No salary cap. Play whoever you want. Darn it, Blender, now you got that stuck in my head. But you can play whoever you want, 3 guards, 3 forwards, 1 center, because all it is multiplier. Everyone's on an even playing field. A 1v1 swap can happen with literally every player at the same position. And so this nice little spreadsheet you got here, basically take the player's projection, multiply it by the multiplier, and boom, we have their median, floor, and ceiling. So, for instance, Luka, his median's 57, multiply it by the multiplier, boom, it's still 57. MCW, his projection's around 32, 33, multiply it by 1.8, boom, his median is 63 points. So this is going to be a super interesting slate. I'm waiting on the RG projections to hopefully update sometime during this show so I can get the most recent numbers in. But as of right now, obviously not taking into account Terrence Ross news. So this could change a little bit. Guys, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them into chat. I already got a few people commenting. Bluegrass Jet, yes, nice job taking down the nickel a few times, taking down the quarter contest, moving up to the $1. That's how you do it. You start off low, you know your limits, you know your bankroll, and you play accordingly. Get it up higher and higher, and then make some real good money in the $20 to $7, and I think they have a $1 competition. Last night, thought I was going to take down all 3. Ended up coming in second in 1, and third in 20, and second in the $1. So still had a nice little payday, but was making twice what I was making at the end of the night, earlier on in the night. But that Sacramento game, they let Golden State come back, and that means that Fox and Holmes both got run in the fourth quarter, which I had multiple lineups with Holmes near the top, multiple lineups with Fox near the top, and there were multiple guys with Fox and Holmes that are 1 to 2 to 3 points above me. So didn't end up panning out. Still made about $4,000 last night. So not terrible news considering I didn't do any research until probably an hour before lock because it was the trade deadline, and it's an entire mess. But we'll get started with the slate here. I'm just going to give you a little bit of overview right now. The players that I have highlighted in blue are my cash game core. The players I have highlighted in green are my tournament core. But there's a lot of guys, like a lot more than normal there in play. And more guys that I already have highlighted or don't have highlighted are going to come into play. So I'm going to look at the 2 main scenarios right now that we're really looking at. They're really going to change a little bit as time goes on. I'm going to check the RG projections, see if they've updated yet, because if I can get them just into this spreadsheet, the most updated one, still don't have it updated. They're probably waiting for the injury report, but as of right now, These are the multipliers for the Orlando team. As you can see, Terrence Ross, we had projected to play. Now he's ruled out. Without him in the game, the usage from Aaron Gordon, from Fournier, from Ross, from Vooch, all out because they're all gone, or in Ross's case, he's not playing. So this is just an incredible spot for this team. We see that the lowest multiplier on the entire team is 1.8 with Okeke and with MCW. MCW is going to probably play 35 plus minutes here, would be my guess. He's a guy that generally doesn't take a ton of shots, but with all the guys out, with a good matchup versus Portland, who's not a great defensive team, he's probably going to shoot the ball 15, 20, 25 times. At this multiplier, I wouldn't say that he's a lock and load because there are a few ways where he doesn't end up doing well. And in those scenarios, it's going to be Okeke crushing. It's going to be Dwayne Bacon crushing. It's going to be James Ennis, who I absolutely hate playing all the time, who's going to end up crushing here. So we look at this like any number of guys can end up crushing for Orlando. Randall could end up stealing minutes from MCW, 2x, but I doubt that he's going to end up getting a ton of usage. It's still a possibility. He's not a huge usage guy. But with all the guys out, he could end up doing quite a bit in this offense. Mo Bamba, all they have is Birch and Bamba to play the center minutes. Bamba can crush on a permanent basis, especially with all these guys out. He can end up with a double-double in 20 minutes. He can end up with a few blocks. Like, he is a guy that is very much in play, going to be going up against Cantor defense, who's not good defensively. So he's a guy that I think you can potentially play in tournaments. Birch is a guy you can potentially play in tournaments. Dwayne Bacon, Ennis, Okeke, Crabtree, all very much guys that you can play in tournaments because there are minutes to go around. We see how many guys they have that are going to play. There's MCW, that's 1. Ennis, 2. Bacon, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They have 8 guys. I think there might be one guy that I'm forgetting that's not listed on here, but 8 or 9 guys that are going to play. So that means just doing straight up math, 48 minutes in the game, 8 guys, times that by 5, divide by 8, whatever it is, you end up getting around 33 minutes per person on average. I think that could be right. I don't know. Math is tough sometimes, but actually we can pretty much do that. So learning things in Excel, you press equals, you go little hyphen or whatever that is, parentheses, 5 times 48 divided by 8. Boom. We have 30 minutes on average per person for the active lineup. Obviously, not all the minutes are created equally. Kareem, Maine, probably not going to go over 30 minutes. So we know that on average, the starting players are going to play 30 minutes. We know that even a terrible team, which this team is terrible because they have none of their starting lineups, it's pretty much like one of these guys is going to go for 20 shot attempts. So I plan on having a rule in my builds of at least one Magic player in every single lineup, possibly 2. Realistically, 2 of these guys are probably going to go for 55, 65, 75 points and a chance at 80. So how is math hard for an accountant? Because guess what? It's been a while since I've been an accountant. It's hard to do that math in my head. I used to be able to do it real quickly, but then, I turned 21 and the alcohols, they get to your brain a little bit, get a little bit slower. Plus, not having a full night's sleep can definitely do that to you. But Orlando, all these guys are in play. If I had to rank them, it's probably MCW, then Okeke, then Dwayne Bacon, then Ennis, then Birch. Actually, Bamba is probably above Ennis for me. So MCW, Okeke, Bacon, Bamba, Ennis, probably my favorite plays in that order. Regardless, I'm probably going to have 20 to 30% exposure to every single guy on this lineup. It's just that simple. Like outside of Maine, maybe Randall, all these guys, I'm going to have at least 30% ownership. I'm going to put a minimum of 30% ownership on them. Again, we'll wait and see what projections end up spitting out for RG. I'm going to update right now, see if they have updated yet. And boom. All right. So I'm going to bring in the new RG projections, see what they got going here. It's going to be a lot better, a lot more accurate. So hold on, doing things on things. So pretty much this page, all the RG projections, just going to copy and paste it over. Boom. Just straight up using DraftKings because there's some volatile categories. Ross is still put in there for 50 points. I'm going to check Yeah, they still have not updated the projections for Orlando fully. They'll probably do it throughout the show, but we'll move on over to another interesting situation. Jimmy Butler, haven't got news. Obviously, if they just say he's going to play, this makes it entirely worthless. But as of right now, if he's in, all these guys are just okay. Like, I'm probably not going none, probably not going hero. But if Butler is out, Olynyk's out, so that's going to be a boost to minutes to probably everyone. But realistically, Olynyk, he was running at the 4. They'd sometimes throw him in at the 5. Bam's going to play 35 minutes in all likelihood, regardless if this game ends up staying close. It's against Charlotte, fast-paced team, bad defensive team. So Bam, his projections are going to be probably 6 points higher if Butler ends up missing. But the big guys are none, Hero, both going to probably play 35 minutes. Like, Dragic has already been ruled out. They only have a certain amount of guys to play. Ariza going to play a boatload of minutes, but doesn't really do a ton. So they're probably just going to throw him in at the 4 between him and Iggy, depending on the amount of minutes. Precious, a little bit in there. But realistically, it just means they're going to run with a lot of none and a lot of Hero. Both of them played 35 minutes, I believe, last night. We can expect something similar today. Hero, with this exact multiplier, ended up with, I think, 78 points last night, maybe 81. None ended up with 62. Both of them become plays that I'm going to have in a ton of my lineups. A lot of stacks if this game ends up staying close, because over on the Charlotte side, we got a lot of guys too. But this is all dependent on the Butler news. If Butler ends up playing, then none. Hero, both out of my lineups likely. Butler, I'll have a little bit. Bam, I'll have a little bit. But predominantly going to be fading Miami. Over on the other side, though, if Butler is ruled out, more likely this game ends up staying close, and you have some way too high multipliers on a few guys. So a lot of the sites have caught up to the fact that LaMelo's not in there, and they've drastically increased the prices of Hayward, of Washington, of Rozier, of Graham. Not as much over on Superdraft. We see here Hayward at 1.5x multiplier. He's 8K over in DraftKings and a 1.5x multiplier over on Superdraft. I think regardless if Butler ends up playing or not, which will be a harder matchup for Hayward, but if Butler ends up playing, still a good spot for Hayward. Still way too high of a multiplier. He's going to be a cash game core. PJ Washington, 1.6x. He's been crushing that price tag. Has 50-point upside, but doing a ton of this offense. Way too high of a multiplier. Rozier can put up a 50-point game in a given night. So his multiplier is probably just a little bit high, unlike Hayward, who should probably be at 1.3x. Rozier should probably be at 1.4x. So just slight amount of upside, or a slight amount of mispricing, but realistically, there's a decent amount of upside because he can get hot shooting. He can get hot from behind the arc. And over on Superdraft, big thing to know, mix between DraftKings and FanDuel pricing. Just like FanDuel, 3 points for a block, 3 points for a steal, -1 point for a turnover. Just like DraftKings, 3.5 points for a three-pointer, 1.5 points for an assist, 1.25 points for a rebound, plus you get the double-double and triple-double bonus. So a little bit mixed between those. So these higher multiplier guys, every block, every steal, every three-pointer is worth, if you're 1.5, anywhere from 6 or 4.5 to 5 points. So all these guys, if they get a few extra of those, it drastically increases their ceiling, whereas a guy like Luka at a 1x multiplier, not going to increase that much. But now let's just start breaking down things position by position. I already given you a little bit of info that is going to likely change a bit of the slate. I'm going to check RG projections again, see if they've been updated, see if Ross is in fact ruled out and they've updated the Orlando stuff, because it takes a little while to actually do things. So they still haven't updated it, but we'll get to that. I'll check again before the end of the show, see where things end up at. But let's check out center. You only get one center position. Clear top option for me for cash is Joker. 1.05x multiplier. Gordon is not going to be playing tonight, so it's the same things we've been expecting from him for a while, which is he puts up 60 to 70 points almost every single night. Absolutely fantastic play. Not even a 1x multiplier. He's a 1.05x multiplier. He's my cash game guy for Superdraft, and likely a guy I'll use a lot of in tournaments because he still has 80-point upside at this multiplier. Other guys that you can consider, Cat, matchup versus Houston, not a great team. He can end up crushing. Bam, again, more Butler's out. I'll be using him, but still a guy that's in play, still a consistent guy, still a guy that I will consider using cash, even if Butler does end up playing. Sabonis shown some upside. We'll definitely use him in tournaments. Harrell had a terrible night last night, but still one of the main offensive guys in this lineup. Porzingis, 1.35x. We've seen him put up 55 points many times. A lot of times it'll be Luka, but I would suggest using Porzingis in lineups where you're not using Luka, because Luka can just let Porzingis do his thing the entire time. Gobert, J-Val, both their multipliers are a little bit low. Capella, multiplier is a little bit low, but he can end up crushing. Robert Williams is the very interesting one. Tice got shipped out. Tristan Thompson is out. Semi is out. So we don't know what they're going to do with their rotations. Match versus Milwaukee. Multiple big guys over on the other side. We got Giannis at over 7 feet, and we got Brook Lopez in, I think, 7 feet tall. I can't remember his exact height. But they'll have some size. And Williams has been crushing on a per-minute basis at certain times. He put up a 50-point game, I think, in 24 minutes, or 48-point game in 24 minutes. If he gets 32, this multiplier is low, but I still think that he's in play just because of the 3 points for blocks and steals, because he can get a ton of stocks. I'm just going to look up his all his stats here real quick, look up his game log. We look at his game log, and he's had a few games. So there was a game where he ended up putting up, 40 points versus Memphis in 27 minutes, 4 blocks. There was a game where he put up 48 points in 28 minutes or 26 minutes. He had 4 blocks, 2 steals. There was the game where he put up 27 with 6 blocks. He only played 16 minutes. Can absolutely happen. He's had a 42-point game versus Indy in 22 minutes, 3 blocks, 1 steal. So over on Superdraft, it translates as a whole lot more than that, because you add an extra 1 point for both the blocks and steals, take a half point away from turnovers, and then you pretty much get Superdraft scoring from DraftKings scoring. So realistically, those times at a 1.35x multiplier, he's getting close to 65 points. So if he's actually going to get a full workload, he can end up with a massive, massive score. Outside of that, Jared Allen more in play if Sexton ends up missing. Wiseman have highlight here just because of his high multiplier. If he gets hot shooting from beyond the arc, gets a match versus Atlanta, maybe he gets some extended run. Birch, Mo Bamba, both guys that you can consider playing. But this is pretty much it. This is who I'm looking at for center. Let's move on over forward. Guys, any questions, go ahead, drop them into chat there. I'll try and get to them throughout the show. But as you can see, I have a lot more guys highlighted for forward than I normally do. So obvious guys, Giannis, Luka can crush on any given night. Giannis, I'm a little bit worried coming back from that knee injury. Didn't do great the last game, so he could still be limited a little bit. Matchup versus Boston, not great. Still probably going to end up using him in cash. Luka, same thing, 1x multiplier, not great, but it's still Luka. Hayward, Washington, 2 guys I'm definitely looking at in cash. Potentially Christian Wood, 1.25x multiplier, a little low, but if he gets 36 minutes, matchup versus Minnesota, one of the better matchups on the board, he can eat up the usage. He can crush here. Multiplier is a little bit low, but a guy that I'm definitely considering in cash. May change throughout the day, and Damian Lillard is ruled out. That makes things more interesting. McCollum could be a fantastic play. I guess we'll get to that when we end up getting over to guard. But with Lillard ruled out, Cantor potentially gets a bump. Let's check out his multiplier. Actually, I'm just going to get through forward, and then we'll look at Portland. But Jaylen Brown, been doing really well recently. Matchup versus Milwaukee. It's going to be a high-scoring game. It's a fast-paced game. Give up a lot of fast break points, so Brown can end up with a big game. Sabonis, Montrezl, Ingram, all fine. Tatum, fine. Kuzma always shows upside. Kristaps always shows upside. Wiggins, without Steph, without potentially Draymond, could end up with a big game. Ennis, already talked about. They have a lot of minutes that are going to be played and a lot of usage that's going to go around. So guy gets in play. Zion, multiplier is too low. He can end up with 50 points, but most of the time he's going to end up with around 40 to 47. And at this multiplier, just not going to get it done. Oubre is fine. Porter is fine. Middleton's fine, but not really making my builds. Siakam without Powell in there could potentially see an uptick, but I have more interest in OG, who's at a 1.65x multiplier. Powell not being there anymore, shipped off to Portland. OG could play close to 40 minutes. I forgot Nurk's coming back tonight. Oh, yeah, that makes Cantor just kind of not in play anymore. But OG, 1.65x multiplier. Bacon, 1.85x multiplier. that's pretty much it for forward. All of those guys are fine, but let's look at Portland here. Portland without Dame, we got McCollum and 1.35x multiplier. Saw what he did last night, played a decent amount of minutes in each of his last few games back. Seems like he's probably healthy enough to play a full workload. But without Dame, Melo probably gets in the starting lineup. Melo can crush. 1.8x, he's going to shoot a bunch. He's a guy that's definitely in play. Covington, multiplier is too low. Yes, it can get blocks, steals, but still not really a guy I want to play. Cantor, multiplier too low. Nurk, multiplier too low. They're going to eat into each other's minutes. So it really leaves you McCollum and Melo. Going to highlight Melo right here now. He's a guy that I definitely will consider playing a decent amount. The thing I'm worried about is this game staying close. So lineups where I'm playing McCollum, lineups where I'm playing Melo. Both of them, I'm going to have to bring it back with at least 2 Orlando plays. So if I'm expecting this game to stay close, the starters are likely going to get more run. That means most likely MCW is a lock and load for me if I'm playing McCollum and Anthony on the other side. Okiki probably in the starting lineup. I'm a little bit worried about his, but Bacon and Ennis's minutes should be solid, and they are going to be guys that I'm bringing it back. I'm going to do a lot of game stacks with this game now that Lillard's out. That makes this game way closer than it originally was. I'm going to check out DK Sportsbook, see what the line is set at. I'm not entirely certain. I think it was at -10 for Portland prior to the Lillard news, but I'm guessing it's going to drop a decent amount. It's not even on the board yet. Kind of look and see what they're going to do for that line. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. I'm still not seeing it. And I'm just talking because I don't want dead air. But this line, I'm guessing, is probably going to drop to -8. Like, I'm still worried, but this is still basketball. We've seen this before multiple times with all sorts of teams in the past. I remember Memphis had a nice little run where they had everyone out and they still kept some games close. Like, we've seen Miami earlier on the season decimated by injuries. Saw Philly decimated by COVID. I think Harris, Embiid, and Simmons were all ruled out, and Maxey just came in and ended up crushing and kept a lot of games close. We've seen Houston decimated by injuries, decimated by COVID, and they still kept a lot of the games close. They also got blown out a lot of games, but any given day, any NBA team can still keep games close because these are all NBA caliber players. They're just not starting NBA caliber players, but we've seen guys like Beasley back, 4 years ago, come in there for New York and keep games close because he just kept shooting. So one of these guys, probably MCW or Bacon, are just going to shoot over and over again. And if they have a decent shooting night, they're probably going to keep the game close. Let's see. I think I want to say what kind of, but I always watch the start off a day. Thanks, Max. Appreciate you watching them. Hopefully them bringing out good content. But yeah, that's basically the Portland situation. Let's bring it on over to guard here. Get all teams in the mix. I'm going to check to see if we have updated the Orlando situation here, because obviously Terrence Ross is going to be a huge change to the projections, and I kind of want to see where they're at and what they're projecting for minutes, because obviously they're looking into this more. Ross still not updated. Going to take a sip of coffee. Oh man, it's weird. I used to hate coffee. Now I just drink a lot of it, depending on the day. But yeah, used to every single morning start my day with 2 shots of espresso, multiple Splendas, and 1 sugar into it every single time. Realized that I didn't want the diabetes, so just started drinking it black. And now I don't intentionally don't drink good coffee because it tastes like dirt to me, and yet I just keep drinking it. Really not sure why, but we look at guard here. Likely the cash game guy is going to be Luka. MCW is pretty much a lock and load for cash. Like, play him in cash. He's going to play minutes, absolutely going to play minutes, unless he gets ruled out for some reason, which I don't see happening, because then Orlando, I don't think, has enough players to play. He's going to play all the minutes in the world, and his usage should go up drastically. 1.8x multiplier. He might be a lock on the slate, to be honest. Like, I don't generally like locking in too many guys over on Superdraft, just because, like, over on DraftKings, any lock button play can end up being at most probably 60% ownership. Powell now questionable to make Portland debut tonight. That could make things interesting. If he ends up playing, probably a bump down for Melo, probably a bump down for McCollum. Powell, what is Powell's multiplier? Let's see. I'm going to have to look it up on the Superdraft site because I don't think he has a projection here, according to RG, because they did not expect him to play. But Powell is still listed for Toronto. I'm going to actually, if he's possible to play, I need what's it called? Send out a message to the Superdraft guys. So sorry, guys, dropping in. Players like yeah, sorry, just had to send a DM to Ricky over at Superdraft. FYI, great service over at Superdraft. Ricky, VIP guy, absolutely takes care of us. All the guys over there take care of me far more than any other site has throughout the days. And I played on, I want to say 20, 30 of them. I don't know. I played on a lot. Can't even list all of them at this point. But guard, young Luka, MCW, likely my core. Could see another Orlando guy break into that core mix for cash, but tournaments like Schroeder can put up a 50-point game, obviously taking up most of the usage over on the Lakers without Davis and without LeBron in there. Can have a big night any given night. Cleveland, obviously not a great defensive team. Don't run at a huge pace, but still, we see his median projection of 55, ceiling of 79. So definitely a guy that I'm considering. Dame being out, obviously not using him anymore. Boom, he's gone. Paul, Sexton, both a little bit high multipliers, can end up crushing on any given night. Not a terrible matchup here. Gary Trent Jr. and Ronnie Hood expected to make Raptors debut on Friday. Ooh, that's interesting. Really not actually that interesting. Trent Jr. is a guy that can shoot. He could potentially end up doing something in this offense, but yeah, I don't think that he makes the cut. I just don't. Brown, 1.3x multiplier. Again, very much in play. McCollum, huge boost without Lillard. I think that even if Powell ends up playing, McCollum makes a fantastic play. Tatum is fine. Van Vliet offers you some upside. Holiday still had a decent multiplier. Jamal Murray is a great play, though. 1.4x multiplier. We've seen 50, 60-point outings from him many times before. I play him almost every single night. And granted, there's a lot of nights where it kills me, but you get an occasional 56-point game. The other night versus Orlando, ended up shooting the ball 25 times, just didn't shoot well. And he could have, if he would have shot well, boom, he's going for 60 points. 1.4x multiplier, that's closer to 90. Ends up crushing. So Jamal Murray is definitely a guy that'll be playing a decent amount tonight. Booker's fine. Rozier already talked about. Donovan Mitchell, 1.2x multiplier, just not high enough. I'll throw him into Memphis stacks from bringing it back with Morant, who's at 1.4x multiplier. Definitely a guy that can give you 50, 60 points any given night. All depends on if he's shooting well. It's just a tough matchup versus Utah. But still, going to be using him a little bit in tournaments. Brogdon, on the morning grind last night, it was interesting talking to Stevie. And since LeVert came in there, with LeVert on the floor, Brogdon really hasn't had a decrease in usage, hasn't had a decrease in production. Just he's playing less minutes. And a lot of that's been because of blowouts. It's a matchup versus Dallas, not a great defensive team. And so he can end up with a pretty big night, and his multiplier is just getting too high. Garland, if Sexton ends up sitting, I think he's currently questionable. We'll get the news in about half hour on what his exact status is. But if Sexton ends up sitting, then Garland's definitely going to be a guy I'm going to use. Definitely give an upgrade to Nance, give an upgrade to Allen. Both of them can end up crushing. What is Nance's multiplier over on Superdraft? Looking it up right now. Nance 1.55x. So not great. Like at that multiplier, you need a legit shot at 50. And yes, he's put up 46 and 50 in 2 of his last 3 games. So yeah, I guess if Sexton is missing, he's definitely a guy that's in play. Bluegraph Jeff, do you usually max out entries on SD tournaments? Depends on the night. Depends on the night, depends on the buy-in. Like what I like to do is on certain nights where there's a lot more edge to be had in a lot of games like this, where I can vary my player pool a lot more. I probably will max it out tonight. I mean, it all depends on how big the contest is. Tonight, I think the $20 one is only 35 entry max, so I'm definitely maxing that out. $7 62 entry max. I'm probably not going 150 on the $1 because it's just not really worth my time to make 90 more lineups, 88 more lineups to get 88 more dollars in play. Like, it takes a lot of work. It's exhausting. I got other things to do. I got bets to make. I got other sites to play. So it just doesn't end up worth my time. If you want to, if you know what you're doing and you're paying attention and you've got the time, absolutely do it, especially if you don't have a huge bankroll. But it all depends on how much actual edge there is to be had on any given night. On a 5-game slate, huge diminishing marginal returns when it comes to building extra lineups. Tonight, decent amount of edge to be had because of the Orlando situation. You're probably going to get NCW in at 70% ownership over on Superdraft. But guys like Okiki, guys like Bamba, guys like Bacon, guys like Ennis are probably going to go a little bit overlooked. You have to wait and see where projection systems are going to come out, but they could all end up being overlooked. If Butler doesn't end up playing, I think that Nunn and Hero are going to get overlooked. People are going to be a little bit overweight on Giannis, on Luka, because those are guys that are generally a little bit overowned on any given night. And yes, they can go for 80, but nights when they only go for 40, you're getting a massive edge. Always interesting situation. Last night, Howard got ejected. He was 50% owned. I thought for sure I was going to win last night because I went way underweight on Howard, and him getting kicked out gave me a massive edge, which, I mean, you don't really plan for. It's always a little bit of an aberration, but it happens. Like, this is basketball. Injuries happen, like reduced minutes, foul trouble, all those things can happen with Howard. So it's kind of why I was off of him, and I just didn't see his upside as much as other people. But keep looking here. Bacon, already talked about him, definitely in play. Lonzo, maybe not. Poole, multiplier's gotten too low. Rubio, I think you can play in tournaments. Edwards, his multiplier's gotten too low, but he's still fine. He can still put up 60 points. Did the other night. It's fast-paced matchup versus Houston. But I'd have to be bringing it back with Christian Wood and probably fading Cat in that lineup. Oubre can put up a big night any given night, but he's going to kill you far more often than not. And realistically, he's 50-point upside. You have a lot of other guys that have a safer floor and ceiling together. Just looking on down, looking through things. Graham is fine. None here already talked about. Dylan Brooks is an interesting scenario. Can crush your heart and soul any given night, but I don't hate playing him just because 1.7x multiplier. Put up over 35, I think, in all last three games. And he had a 50-point game in there. If he gets hot shooting, he can get some stocks too. He can end up crushing, but that's pretty much it for today's slate. Yeah, like that's it. We got to wait for the news. I'm going to update RG projections one more time. See where they've got Orlando at. They still might not have updated, but I mean, yeah, still haven't updated yet. So nothing new there. Sorry about that, guys, but it's pretty simple. Like, almost everyone on the Orlando team is at 1.8 to 1.95x multipliers, or 2 multipliers. So pretty much look at the RG page, look at lineup HQ, check to see what the fantasy point production is on these guys. Any guy with over 30 fantasy points projected, like MCW is right now, immediately in play in the entire lineup. Anyone with a ceiling over like 40 is definitely in play in tournaments, even if their median projection is around 30. So that's just kind of how I look at it if you want a quick thing and you don't want to create this big Excel spreadsheet that I did. But that's it, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Again, get signed up using promo code Grinders. Deposit 150 or more, and you get a nice little deposit bonus. You got 150 in SD cash plus 50% drip bonus. Deposit less than that, you get a straight $50 Superdraft cash. Play through once, and it's yours. Yeah, get signed up. Any questions you got for this, go ahead and throw me something out on Twitter. Throw something in on this comment section. Generally don't look at my Twitter DMs too much, so just at me on Twitter instead, because I'm far too lazy to check DMs and I don't only check notifications. But yeah, that's it. That's today's Super Draft show, guys. Good luck tonight. Keep an eye on news. Keep an eye on Jimmy Butler. Keep an eye on the RG projection for Orlando. But that's going to be the main news you're looking for until some random news comes in. But yeah, guys, thanks for joining me. We'll be back again on Monday, most likely. Baseball season's coming up soon, so you know I'm going to be breaking down that too. It's been fun, guys. I'm out of here. See you, kids.